A gang who flooded the streets with crack and heroin used a code name to try and fool police. Gang members who ran the Turk line, which flooded Birmingham, Coventry, and areas up north, including Manchester, with Class A drugs, used a fake name to try and throw police off the scent. The Turk line racket operated across Coventry between December 2022 and August 2023 and distributed to locations across the country. The gang would use cars to deal drugs from registering them under false aliases of Florentin Iosif at various addresses to avoid journeys used to drop off the drugs ever being linked back to them. West Midlands police confirmed 5 men have been jailed for more than 40 years after they smashed the line. Jihad Mohammedi, Walid Hossein, Zewa, Yunis, Sawat, Ahmed, and Shahram Karimi were jailed for a combined total of more than 42 years for their involvement in supplying crack and heroin. In the months leading up to their arrest, Hossein and Mohammedi were stopped in one of the cars multiple times. On these occasions, Mohammedi would give his details as being Florentin Iosif. However, records also place the Turk line phone at the same location as the stopped car, along with personal phones belonging to the pair. Between December 2022 and April 2023, the Turk line was used to send out more than 8,000 bulk messages to multiple people advertising drugs for sale. Drugs were then often transported in cars registered to Florentin Yusuf, but driven by different members of the group around Coventry, Birmingham, Manchester, and other parts of the country. What came next helped dismantle the line as a result of search carried out. Officers from West Midlands Police's County Lines Task Force carried out a warrant at an address in Coventry where Mohammedi, Yunis and Hussein were arrested. At the address, a mobile phone, believed to be the main handset for the Turk line, was recovered. Yunis was searched and found to have had the keys to a safe containing a large amount of cash. When Mohammedi and Hussein were searched, large amounts of cash was also found on them. Ahmed and Karimi were arrested in the days after the warrant, and during interview, most of the group gave no comment answers to the majority of questions. Ahmed even claimed to not even know what Class A drugs were. Following an analysis of the group's individual mobile phones as well as phones used to service drug users and CCTV at key times, placing different numbers of the group at key locations, the detectives were able to link them all to the Turk line. Text messages between Mohammedi and Hussein also showed the pair discussing the wholesale of the kilos of coke, and investigations further revealed how much of the money was being laundered through businesses linked to Yunis. Police estimated the line to be worth over £500,000. 4 of the group were sentenced at Warwick Crown Court, and a 5th man was sentenced at a previous hearing. Detective Constable David Cockbill from West Midlands Police's County Lines Task Force said, following the sentencing, the task force have worked hard to put this group behind bars where they can't cause further misery to our communities. He said, we won't stop in our fight against organised crime and will continue to remove drugs off our streets and bring those involved to justice, whilst also protecting and safeguarding the vulnerable people caught up in these lines. We can't do this without the help of the public, and something small could be something big in our investigation. We relied on the intel of the community to bust this gang. So Jihadi Mohammedi, who's 23 from Coventry, was jailed for 11 years and 7 months for conspiracy to supply Class A. Zewa Yunus, who's 31, was jailed for 9.5 years for conspiracy to supply Class A. Sawat Ahmed, who's 22 from Manchester, got 9.5 years for conspiracy to supply Class A. Walid Hussein, who's 23, was jailed for 9 years and 11 months for conspiracy to supply Class A. And Shahram Karimi, who's 23 of Coventry, was jailed for 3 years for possession with intent to supply Class A drugs. And guys, in this next news story, a man has been convicted of murder after he was identified following the forensic analysis of discarded cigarettes at the scene. Zach Backos, 29, was found guilty at the Old Bailey on Friday of offences including the murder of 27-year-old Michael Patrick Afonso Peshito. On the 19th of December 2023, police were called to Thornton Heath at around 10:30 at night following reports of a man being seriously assaulted. Officers arrived alongside the London Ambulance Service and located Michael on the floor with multiple stab wounds. He was sadly pronounced dead at the scene, and a murder investigation was launched by detectives from the Specialist Crime Command. Inquiries revealed that a group of men were seen arriving at the road where the incident happened and waited in a white BMW for around 30 minutes. Michael and a friend arrived at the location in a Vauxhall. Michael got out of the car and was confronted by a man holding a large knife. Michael was stabbed multiple times, including once in the chest as he attempted to get back into the car. The suspects then threatened his friend with a knife and forced her out of the car before stealing the car. The car was located abandoned nearby. During searches of the area following Michael's death, officers located cigarette butts on the floor near to where the BMW was parked. Forensic analysis was undertaken, and these were matched to Bacco, John Buddle, and Omari Pete. All three were arrested and charged with murder and robbery within a month. Following a 4-week trial at the Old Bailey, a jury returned verdicts, and Zach Bacco was found guilty of murder and robbery. John Buddle was found not guilty of murder and guilty of manslaughter and robbery. Omari Pete was found not guilty of murder or manslaughter and guilty of robbery. All three men are going to be appearing for sentencing on the 13th of January. Detective Inspector Martin Thorpe said Zach Bacco arrived that day armed with a knife and was prepared to use it against Michael Afonso Petzito, we believe, for drugs. It's been just over a year since Michael was killed, leaving his family, including his young son, devastated. And whilst this Christmas will be no easier than the last for his family, I hope that this result allows them to start moving forward with their lives. And in this next news story, a man who murdered an extremely vulnerable mum has been jailed for at least 32 years. Tiffany Render died of a massive hemorrhage at Paul Irwin's flat in Cumbria after both had consumed alcohol and coke. Irwin denied murder but was convicted by a jury following a trial last month at Carlisle Crown Court. The 50-year-old had previously been given a suspended jail term after attacking Ms. Render with a rolling pin and strangling her in July 2023. The trial heard Irwin was arrested twice in the weeks leading up to Miss Render's murder and had been banned from contacting her. However, despite obtaining safe accommodation, the 34-year-old continued to stay at his flat. Shortly before midnight on the 22nd of March, Irwin called 999 and he said, "Miss Render is dead." Paramedics found her unresponsive, surrounded by blood-soaked bedding, and she was pronounced dead by a doctor. Ian Simkin, the KC, the prosecutor, said the severe force which caused the injury led to almost immediate bleeding, and Miss Render bled to death inside the defendant's home. She was without doubt an extremely vulnerable woman who was emotionally and psychologically trapped inside an aggressive, violent and controlling relationship, and it was against that background that this defendant murdered her. In one text to Irwin, Miss Render had said, "If you did love me, you wouldn't hurt me again and again and again." Impact statements reveal she was a mother to a number of children, cared for by her family, also a sister, a loving auntie, niece and cousin. Her mother stated, "No parent should ever have to go through this." So in mitigation, the defence for the guy, Peter Glenser, said Irwin had not intended to kill Miss Render and was truly remorseful, except it had not been a planned attack. Mrs. Justice Foster imposed a mandatory life sentence, ruling Irwin should serve a minimum of 32 years in prison before being considered for parole. Mrs. Justice Irwin, she was an extremely vulnerable woman, and your treatment of her increased that vulnerability. You're a very horrible man. So guys, there's a number of stories coming out from the streets of the UK. It's your boy GC. Keep it locked, keep it real.